Industrial leaders and special guests, welcome back to this year's VIX event. Once again, here's LNS Research co-founder and commercial leader, Mehul Shah.
Welcome. Welcome, everyone. How's everyone doing today? Awesome. That's the energy. So everybody here in Chicago, welcome to the second day of the Industrial Transformation Executive event, and a special welcome to everybody who's watching us virtually. I hope everyone had a productive day, and you are able to continue the meaningful discussions, the fun discussions that you had in the morning during the roundtables, hopefully in the evening at the bar, because that's where a lot of the fun discussions happen anyways. So today we want to talk a little bit about the topic of Operations 2030. We want to continue the journey, but the one thing that I want to talk about is the number that we saw yesterday in several presentations. 85%. 85% of companies currently have a formal industrial transformation initiative, or they're planning it in the next year, which is in the next couple of months. Let it sink in. What does that mean? That means industrial transformation is mainstream. It's no longer a competitive advantage whether you have an initiative or not. Your competitive advantage is if you're going to get to scale earlier than your competitors. If you're in the 15%, and I speak to a lot of companies that are in the 15%, they don't have buy-in, they don't have leadership that are saying, we want a transformation program, the time is now. And the good thing for you is a whole host of companies have already started this journey. So for those companies, the goal is, can you do it quicker than your competitors? If they took 8 years to get scale in certain areas, can you do it in the next 4 years? I think one thing I want to talk a little bit about is also goals. So I put several goals. So we at LNS Research talk to thousands of manufacturers every year. So some of these goals are directly coming from those meetings. Depending on the kind of organization you are, some of these goals are more aligned to you than others. If you're in the life sciences pharma business, everything is about new product introduction. Can you get that next billion-dollar drug out in the market first? If you're in the pulp and paper company, it's all about reliability and maintenance. Can you get your equipment to drive it better? We have all of these goals, and sometimes these goals are competing with each other. You try to drive more safety in your plants, which might increase production cost or have delays in your production. You try to reduce cost, but that might impact the reliability of your equipment. You try to drive sustainability, but that comes with a financial cost. We, as leaders, need to make sure we have one common goal, because we are trying to get a broader organization towards that goal. The example that I really like is this example. We all use it in our day-to-day life. Very clear destination and a path to get to that destination. Our destination is Operations 2030. The challenge in our industry is, number one, a lot of the times that destination is not clearly defined. Number two, if it's defined, corporate knows it, but it's not bought in by the rest of the organization. Number three, that destination keeps on moving. We got new leaders. The economy is not doing well. We got suppliers that has challenges. Yes, we need to have flex in the model, but the destination can't change. And the final and the most important part, yes, we have the destination, but we do not have any clue of how to get to that destination. There are many paths to get to that destination of Operations 2030. We, as leaders, need to figure out what is the right path for our organization. Our job as leaders is to inspire. Our job as leaders is to drive change, is to communicate, is to educate, is to bring our organization to the next level of transformation so that we can exist in this world. We hope to do all of that over the next half a day with roundtables and executive panels. So this is a bird's eye view of what's coming in today. We have a series of roundtable like yesterday, and keynote panels to start with, and then we'll have a keynote panel to end with. Can we please give a huge round of applause for all of our speakers? So today we look into 5 different topics, starting from autonomous plant to the topic of environment, health, and safety, how do we get to zero harm within our plants, within our people. We continue our discussion on one of the challenges that I've heard from every single person here, which is workforce. How do we get ready for the next generation of workforce, the future of industrial work? We'll continue to talk about data and analytics, and then finally we will talk about the vision of factory of the future and how do you make it successful. We end the day today continuing with the theme of Operations 2030. We have an amazing panel that will be ready to challenge you, inspire you as you leave for your organization on how to drive your goal and path towards Operations 2030. I want to once again thank all of the sponsors. Without them, this would not have been possible. If you've not connected with them, I would recommend you at least say hi, understand their thoughts into industrial transformation. They're all doing some really, really interesting things to get their clients closer to Operations 2030. Let's give a huge round of applause to all of the sponsors today. Before I introduce our amazing keynotes, I do want to put a plug in for our next event in Atlanta. So you saw Matthew talking about Pathfinders yesterday, some of the research he and his team is driving to think about and figure out who are the world's most productive companies. Your CEO, your COO, all are asking for it. How do we compare against the world's most productive company? Within your industry, across the industry. So the goal of this event, it's going to be a smaller event, but the focus is to highlight who the Pathfinders are and what gets them to Pathfinders. With that, I would like to introduce our keynotes for this morning. You'll hear from Mike G. from Molex. I think everybody knows Molex. They are electronic components organization with plants globally. Mike leads the digital vision for Molex, and what he'll talk about is not just how to create actual business value, but how does digital enable employee and customer experience. We'll also hear from David Vallejo. He's from a company whose technology is probably used in majority of the plants, SAP, and he and his team leads supply chain planning, manufacturing, and logistics. He'll talk about his vision of how to automate end-to-end manufacturing. With that, I would like to invite our first keynote speaker. I've rarely seen somebody as passionate as Allison about the topic of future of industrial work, safety, and industrial profitability. Please join me in welcoming Allison Kuhn.
Boy, oh boy, I really couldn't have asked for a better opening song because that rocked. It really did. So before I start, Allison Kuhn, absolutely, I am very passionate about what I do. One, though, I want to give us the opportunity to thank those who are here, who have made this event so incredibly possible for us to focus on what we need to be focusing on. Number one, we've got our Magic Production AV studios back there that have made sure you could hear, that you could see. And number two, while I'm looking for them, the incredible frontline staff of the Ritz-Carlton. Did you get enough to eat today? Did you get your turn down service and your chocolates? Yeah. So you see where I'm headed already, right? When I said, look, there they come. Thank you, Angel. Thank you, Rosario Gustavo. I want to thank them right there. These incredible gentlemen have been serving us constantly and making sure that we had what we needed as executives to go and do what we needed to do in industry. And what do we need to do in industry? Well, we need to recognize that we've got to future-proof our front lines. So what does that mean to each individual person? And what are you suffering with? You can't get folks to stay. Gustavo has been here older than I have been alive. He told me that this morning. I'm thinking, well, that's nice, but you may not know how old I am. He actually has been just a little bit here older than I am, old. but 46 years, correct me if I'm wrong, 46 years he's been here. And there's a book about the transformation that the Ritz-Carlton went through, and it was not the leader who wrote that book. It was not the leadership tactics per se. It is committed frontline individuals who are doing it day in and day out. And they want to do it for you. They want to do it for us. When I said, boy, I'm following a tough crowd, my boss comes up here and kicks it off. I've got Mr. Ellis here that comes up and kicks it off. I want him to be my mentor. And we're struggling to recruit. We're struggling to get folks to stay here and work for us. They leave before they start the first day. They leave the first day of lunch. Show of hands, how many of you have had your 90-day turnover rates skyrocket? They leave at lunchtime sometimes, right? This whole new generation needs something new. But what I'm here to tell you about is this people aspect. The importance of people. Yes, there's process, there's technology. The LNS Research Industrial Transformation Framework looks at that technology-based start and says, guys, few girls in the room, that ain't working. Why is it not working? Because the technology is incredible. Technology is only a nice, shiny tool. It's critical, it's an important part, but it's not going to help us truly keep people to come, keep people to stay, keep people engaged, and keep them safe. And what you may or may not know about me, especially those who are joining us through our LinkedIn Live feed, is I've spent over 22 years in manufacturing myself. I've got blood on my hands. It didn't matter the messages I said that said, I truly want you to go home better than what you came. It's not about going home like you came. Better, right? I need you to go home with a paycheck to feed your family. But consistently, we have sent them messages that are conflicting with those signs that say, people first, safety first. We've consistently said productivity is important, that our compliance is important, our image is important. And the research I'm going to show you absolutely without a doubt proves that if you focus on what you think might be fluffy, I'm really going to hope that I'm going to challenge you to look at things a little bit different moving forward. Because when I mentioned that I was a little bit nervous because I wanted to make sure that these guys came in, I had some folks saying, yeah, but you got to go flip this room, you got to go put these notepads out, you got to do this. I said, look, I need them. And those guys said, even if I'm not there, we know you're going to kill it. You're going to do great. They're motivating me. But as executives, we should be working for our teams, because if that all happens, the productivity, the profit margins, everything else is gratuitous. It really is. That's going to be your competitive advantage is your people. Because you have one person that has had a bad experience, you've got social media, you've got Facebook, you've got everything else that's going to bring you down quick. Doesn't matter what your strategy says. And one of the things I like to tell folks, after my years of experience and after being able to come here with LNS Research, is you're really just not that special. Because 70% of folks already admit that they're seeing the great goodbye impacts. 88% of our research says that we expect increased workforce challenges. You're really not that special. But we've been holding our breath for a long time. We've literally been saying for a long time things will get better. When the budget's looking rough, when the quarter looks rough, let's cut some folks. When it's now the front line can't be cut because we're worried the front line won't come back, what are we doing? We're laying off the white collar folks. The white collar is the one that's helping the front line keep things going. So this whole business continuity of operations, this is all sustainability. So sustainability is nothing new. But we've been going about it in a way that our culture's been changing. We need low-hanging fruit. We need some quick wins. I'm going to give you this, but if you don't deliver this in X amount of days, guess what happens to your resources? It goes, right? Because we're in a land of fast-paced results, fast changes. So our manufacturing has went through some seriously unprecedented change. Uncertainty is the only certainty. Black swan events, right? I come from southern Louisiana, and during this presentation, I may light my southern show. So if you don't understand some of my southernisms, Allisonisms, as some folks call it, come talk to me after the show so I can explain it to you. But these black swan events, let me just, mention hurricanes. Hurricane Audrey came through and decimated things as a 100-year storm. We have had no less than 500 to 700-year storms in the last 10 years, not just in southern Louisiana, in Texas. We've had them in flooding in New York. So if you don't believe sustainability is real and the data may or may not show, you can't turn your head away from the change of these black swan events are not these 100-year, they're now a reality. And we've got folks that are surviving. So Allison, why do you have black swans? I get that. What's up with the ostriches? Not just one, right? I've got 4 ostriches. So I'm going to challenge you to look at each of these ostrich pictures and say, which one am I? Which is my board? And which is my leadership team? Who's looking forward while the others are all looking back or in another direction? Are they looking at the train wreck behind them? Or is that one person seeing the train coming at them? These two that are looking at each other, is that 2 of our paper mills here, International Paper and Georgia Pacific, is that them watching each other saying, what are you doing? Because I want to be the biggest, I want to be the best. But look, they're here today to work together because we're in this together. So that group that's looking there, that's saying, which way do I run? Is it fight or is it flight? And as LNS research talks about the pivot point, that move from that vision base, right, that vision phase to that value phase, it's not easy. It's painful. It's never coming when you want it to come. But we have been lying to ourselves and saying this workforce crisis, number one, has not been going on for at a minimum since the 1940s. The data shows it, absolutely. Since 2018, in that recession, we've seen match charts, right, that show that significant plateau of productivity, which you may or may not caught is the significant reduction in the number of employees that have been in manufacturing. So we've been sending the message saying, we don't need you, we don't need you, we don't need you. And now we're saying, oh gosh, we need people. God, we need people to run our plants. But we've been looking at contingent staff, we've been looking at contracted labor, we've been fussing at the unions for making it harder for us to do our job. Ignore all of that. It's people, it's humanity that we don't have anymore. We've really got to understand that we've got to treat each other as equals. Learn from each other. I've learned more from some of the folks that have just joined where I worked in 1 week than I have than a person who's worked for that company for 38 years. Because sometimes we get so stuck into what we believe, and what we believe is the truth, we can't really see that mirror, we can't see that reflection. So those that have started the Future of Industrial Work Sprint that LNS research offers is saying, wow, that it's, hey, that's hard to look at. We see it, we can't deny it, but it's not going to get any easier because not only is uncertainty the only certainty, we are also facing a considerably accelerated pace of change. We're not slowing down, we're only going faster. So that move from reactive to proactive, that's that pivot. It's not coming when you're ready for it, but it's come. And if you don't do it, you will not be operating, one, as your company. A company, 3M, ADM, JTech, International Paper, Georgia Pacific, those brand names may be still there, but somebody else may be operating your assets. We have others that, right, this M&A acquisitions that are constantly happening, that's going to keep happening, right? I work for Dow Chemical. My paycheck was through Union Carbide. The Union Carbide board still exists. They still have a lot of pull and push. So when we had our audit findings, I asked the Dow Vice President of Global Operations if he would come in and see what we're facing in meeting our Sarbanes-Oxley, the SOX Act, and our MRO compliance issues. He didn't want to use the restroom. I didn't blame him. His has granite. His has, you know, these visitors at headquarters, but even the on-site hydrocarbons unit, those folks had seen the money that was sunk in. Any rainstorm they had, they were out there with pushed brooms trying to get all the water out of the warehouse because, you know, if you don't know, South Louisiana's underwater, right, Ken? We have pumps that keep it alive, and these events are hurting us more and more. So what does it look like in today's manufacturing world and challenge? We got shut down operations. We didn't want to shut them down. We've got folks that we don't have coming in that are equipped to run the equipment. We've got folks that are coming in and really want to run the equipment, but we don't have the knowledge management and the way to tell them how to run the equipment. So it should be no surprise to us that our increased costs are there. The shortage of skilled labor is because we have pulled back and said so much, you need to go to college. We actually pulled money away from our vocational schools, from our high schools. So when you tell me, Allison, we don't have a pipeline of talent anymore, yes, and I was part of it. Ooh, excuse me. Sorry, guys. I was part of the institution, yes. We pulled back. We were looking at these 30-year vets and said, we're going to keep having them. We're in these communities and they love us. We've been employing them for a while. We're just going to raise money. You can't buy your way out of this problem. And this supply chain disruption, again, stop putting Band-Aids all over. Let's look at the root cause. If we really look at the root cause, it's been the way we've been treating people. If we look at Ukraine, if we look at Israel, if we look at all of these mass shootings, we have horrific events. I could keep going on and on. We've somewhat lost our humanity in treating each other with respect. We're not going to get there tomorrow, but I would like this group and this LinkedIn Live audience to really look and say, what can I do different? Because oftentimes it takes one person to seriously move a hill. And our quit rates, they're continuing to rise. Our turnover, you know, is skyrocketing. We've got less than 3 years in manufacturing as an average. We've got numerous studies by Deloitte, by the previous Workday, who now is UKG. There are 80% of manufacturing folks today say, I'm leaving manufacturing within 1 year. We've got 78% of those who work in manufacturing today. So 3 out of every 4 of you would not recommend manufacturing to somebody who's looking for a career. That's scarier. Traditional's failing. The status quo hasn't been failing for the last 3 years. It hasn't been failing for the last 5. I know it was painful when I joined the Air Force after September 11th. I came in as we were having mass turnover. They had nobody coming and everybody retiring. Gen X, baby boomers, they're already starting to retire. Next 3 to 5 years, you'll see a significant change. Digital natives are coming. Their expectation is technology. But your technology will not be successful unless you understand our LNS research approach, that it must start with people, process, and then technology. because that increase in pace of change and that need for industrial transformation, what are your drivers? How are you going to embrace this change? How are you going to stop these folks from walking out the gate? And I say folks because look at women, less than 30%. I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 women in this room. I've been right now in 2 round tables, I've had 0 women. That is manufacturing today. As a female leader, I had nowhere to come back and take care of what I needed to take care of after my 6 weeks of maternity leave. I had to walk past my guys. They knew what I was going, they knew what I was doing. It was my choice to come back so soon because I love what I do. Manufacturing is damn sexy. We believe it, but the world doesn't. So we need to do something about it, and LNS has started. Since 2018, we've been looking at this connected worker. We've been now expanding to bigger than that, proactive, comprehensive, what do we need to do? We need to first say, we've been doing it wrong, and we have to reimagine that employee life cycle. Support and serve. Servant leadership, I hear it a lot. Until I left the federal government and came into private industry, I had never seen so much command and control in my life. And I hear, oh, you're military, you're commanding. No, I was allowed to do my job before I came to private industry. True. Meet employees where they are. What do they need? Listen to them. The human-centric technology is important. It really is. And there's 3 critical pieces that we've made a framework for. The total employee experience. This new generation wants to stay. They want challenging and meaningful work. They want a place to be able to use the restroom, especially if you are a lady. They want somewhere that they believe that you care about them. We've got burnout at all levels. We've got burnout at the front line. They're walking out. You guys are burning out. The burnout rates are high. We've been doing it. Servant leadership. What does it mean to empower and culture to you? Our framework goes through it. I want to talk to you about it more. I'm that passionate. And then we've got these connected frontline workforce applications. Let's kill applications, because yes, we have MESs, we have ERPs, we've got a great lot of things. Our CFWSSM goes through quite a few of them. We've got more and more people that are coming to LNS and saying, what can I do to help? That's what we need, help. So we've got our framework. We've got a roundtable today, and I thank those who are coming, but it's not the only one. It's not the end of the discussion. We're starting to be real with it here at LNS Research, and we're starting to see more and more of you understanding how real it is. So I'll leave you with some of these actionable recommendations. I challenge you as leaders to take it personal. I myself, while I'm passionate and I'm doing a lot about it, I've made a lot of mistakes in my career I look back on. But the mistakes I've made and the vulnerabilities I've shown has only made them work harder and make my job easier, which makes my boss's job easier. People aren't replaceable. They're not. Without people, we can't run anything. People must remain first, not profit. Focus on the people, you get profit. Industrial transformation, thank you for coming. You'll learn it. Future work, we can and we will redefine the nature of industrial work for the frontline and the corporate jobs, because I believe you're that dang gum smart. Everybody in this room and everybody out there. Thank you for letting me be on my soapbox.
Please welcome to the stage SAP Vice President, Global Head of Digital Supply Chain, David Vallejo.
Supposed to walk slowly up here, I was told. Although I'm talking about speed. The speed of innovation, the speed of technology. Working for SAP, I actually competed with SAP for the longest time. I never thought SAP stands for speed. But I want to talk about technology and innovation because for the longest time, it was actually human ideas. It was aspiration that moved and pushed technology. We want to fly to the moon, so we invent the rocket. We invent everything that goes with it. We have a dream of a self-driving car, so we invent all the sensors and the AI and the technology to make that happen. But in a certain way, we've reversed this paradigm by having now technology available where we're thinking, wow, this is astonishing. What can we do with it? And the technology is evolving so quickly that when we think of industrial transformation and we're embarking on a transformation, that exponential growth of technology and innovation is something where we have to plan for the technology that becomes available, not just being locked in what is possible today. So the greatest shortcoming of the human race is actually our inability to understand the exponential function. Some of you may know this famous legend of the person that invented the chess game, and the emperor, which is now India, was very impressed and said, "Do you have a wish?" Right? And the person said, "Well, I want to just feed my family with rice. So all I want is you put a grain of rice on the first, and then you double it on the next square, and so on." And he said, "Oh, sure, we can do that. It probably amounts to like a couple pounds of rice." And he started counting, and already after 10 squares, you're at 1,000. It's roughly a pound. After 20, you're at 1,000,000 grains. At 32 squares, which is half the chessboard, you've exhausted all the rice that was available in the entire country. I believe when it comes to technology innovation, we've entered the second half of the chessboard. We have an explosive growth of technology innovation that we now have to learn to adopt. We at SAP have to learn how to use it, how to apply it, how to build application to create meaning and relevant applications for the business. So intuitively, we know that technology innovation has exponential growth. What is also shortening is the adoption. So it took about 100 years to actually have a refrigerator in every home. That took a very long time. To put a phone into every home. It took like 8 years for LinkedIn to reach 100 million users, but only 4 years for Facebook. 9 months for TikTok. ChatGPT, less than 8 weeks. So why is it that most companies only upgrade very critical enterprise software that they're running on-premise, some of them homegrown, in average only every 7 years? Manufacturing execution systems, supply chain planning systems. Why is it that companies don't realize with the exponential innovation of technology, the longer you wait on adopting it, you exponentially become a laggard. You have an exponential pace of becoming a laggard. And it is oftentimes that people don't realize that there is a path to get that pace in place. And that is adoption of modern cloud technology. putting critical systems into the cloud and having partners like SAP or wonderful software partners building innovation that you can start thinking about adopting. If you think about it, 7 years ago, Pokemon Go was a big thing. 7 years ago is such a long time. Imagine what all happened in the meantime. That means, in average, a lot of companies, their manufacturing execution systems are from the time where Pokemon Go was a thing. Some of them are actually, that's the average, so some of them are actually even older than that and have been longer than that. So there's a massive amount of exponential growth in technology innovation, but equally what is growing is the amount of data. The amount of data that is needed to drive all of the phenomenal aspirations that we've heard about already this morning. Improving processes, serving the worker, automating processes around also sustainability. If I want to drive a sustainable enterprise, I need to track, I need to get data from my trading partners. So the data that I need to get insights, to make decisions, is also explosive in growth. And it's not just storage. It's about the innovation that I need, the intelligence that I need to correlate that data, to make sense out of it. So most companies are starting to build their enterprise data lakes. Now that data lake may become stale the moment you start building it because technology on that front is evolving, where you have hot storage, warm storage, cold storage, replication-free integration. These are things that are evolving essentially every quarter. So what I'm really passionate about is SAP's path to the cloud, which oftentimes is also not that easy. But we see this great potential to servicing our customers, not just with building the software, but thinking about it a lot more holistically. Thinking about the whole service, the data that is required. We're building partnerships with data providers. We're productizing data products so that we can get market economic data, labor rates, logistics data, risk data, mixing in to the enterprise applications to drive better insights. Ultimately, why is a human still operating the software? Because the human knows something that the machine doesn't know. So it is all about getting that additional data so that we can actually achieve what is true digital. By the way, what is the definition of digital? We heard digital all over this conference. We had an interesting debate last night over dinner. I offer a definition. A real true digital transformation means aspiring to machine automation. Aspiring to machine to human insight. Being respectful to the human ingenuity in offering insights to the human so that they can take action. So a PDF document, an Excel document, a SharePoint file, a fax machine is not digital, even though there are ones and zeros involved. So Moore's law enables, which is, by the way, still, Moore's law, everybody's familiar with that? Started in 1965, all probably the nerds here would know that, where he said actually the number of transistors on a circuit would double every year. Gordon Moore later corrected it to say every 2 years in 1975, and since then has been holding mostly true. There's a little bit of slowdown in pace, but there is no outlook when it's going to stop. We're going from 9 nanometers to 5 and 3. The amount of innovation that goes in the intelligence of not just CPUs, but now GPUs that actually fuel the next generation of AI. So the question is, do companies want to be in that data center business to actually manage that pace of innovation? Or do you leave it to the innovators to keep that pace for you so that you can concentrate on adopting that for your business? And I believe the latter is the correct or more promising path. So we want to be in the business to keep the pace of innovation for our customers so that they can achieve the aspirations that we also heard from Allison, catering to the connected workforce, making sure that we have the processes automated so that you can focus on your own products and your own innovations. So we see, and LNS agrees with that most companies already put cloud-first mentality into their plans for industrial transformation. For a lot of companies, that is unheard of, by the way. 20 years ago, I had companies saying supply chain will be the last fortress that will never go to the cloud. And again, because of the lack of exponential thinking, because people think, oh, cloud, that introduces latency. What happens if somebody digs up the fiber cable in front of the plant? Then everything will be down. So this is not going to work. Cloud is not going to work for manufacturing. Cloud is not going to work for supply chain planning. It has way too much data. I need the system that sits on a server directly in the factory because then I know it's going to work. So we've been able to bust some of those myths. We're not working with dial-up modems anymore. But we still have that in our head when we think about building an architecture. We think about the technology that we learned. We think about the technology that's available today. What I'm submitting is, when you build your industrial transformation architecture, think of where technology is going tomorrow. I'm doing that at SAP when I work on our strategy for our applications, and I'm working with development to say, think about building applications that work with the technology that becomes available tomorrow. And we have some good examples of adoption. Here's an interesting case study with Zeiss Medical Manufacturing. They wanted to build a whole smart production line. And they built a template and said, we're going to really jump into this cloud first. We're going to do it. And they were actually amazed that typically a rollout to multiple plants was taking a long time. They rolled out to 20 plants in just the first year. They were amazed that real-time data submission from hundreds of machines pushing the data into the cloud was actually possible. Now they actually have not just the manufacturing execution capability, but full end-to-end traceability, the analytics, and connecting it actually to their financial and supply chain planning in real time. So this is another thing what cloud is enabling, is putting these processes actually together in the same environment. Now, with that, you actually connect sort of the top floor with the shop floor with things that were probably not really possible before. So now the next frontier, generative AI, we've heard it all over the conference and in the discussions. SAP is making a huge bet that this is going to transform the way we're thinking about enterprise software. And oftentimes the initial reaction is actually, for a lot of people, fear. You see that, Hollywood goes on a strike and say, oh my God, generative AI will make the writer's job redundant. I have a friend who came to me and said, David, they're coming after our jobs. And I said, why do you say that? And he said, I'm going to a job website, and the first thing that it asks, before even showing me the jobs, are you a robot? Obviously, that was a joke. I believe it has a huge potential to improve frontline workers, to massively improve people that are managing supply chain decisions. We have done first experimentation with generative AI in conjunction with using supply chain data. And some of the developers had great ideas to actually take a whole log file. So while supply chain scheduling and planning is running and says, I'm working on this customer order and I'm checking the capacity, I'm checking the inventory, putting that through a large language model, you can now ask questions. Why is my service level only 72% for this particular product line? And we were shocked. It came back with an answer that was clear, that was concise, that we thought, geez, it would have taken us a very long time to arrive at the same conclusion. Came back with an answer that the forecast has changed, the supply was not positioned correctly, and that I have a specific issue, which is number 2, that this work center is currently overloaded. I'm like, okay. I think that's going to be a game changer to add a narrative. Today we're using a lot of reports. We're looking at numbers, we're looking at donut charts, and we look at our OEE. And then when we take that to our executives, we have to create a narrative. Where should we invest? What does this mean? So this can help creating a narrative. It can also help with training, documentation. We're doing some experimentation on use cases on shift handover, for example, to take that whole dialogue and using generative AI to help with that handover, to help to replace some of the last frontier on paper processes. So large language model can massively improve optical character recognition to actually understand the semantics and create a super high accuracy. So we're actually bringing that out for inbound transportation receipt documents to go straight from a document into an ERP with high accuracy. So we want to be in the business to bring innovations to you. We invite you to allow SAP to manage your environment. We're not just a software provider. We want to rise your environment into the cloud. And then the final question is your manufacturing execution still in the Pokemon age? And with that, thank you very much.
Please welcome to the stage Molex Chief Digital Officer, Mike Giresi.
Morning. Thanks, David. That was really interesting. And from a technology perspective, I think a lot of the things you were saying were pretty accurate, particularly around the concept of cloud and working and parallel capabilities and bringing speed to forward. Allison, I thought your discussion was super interesting around people. I'm the Chief Digital Officer at Molex. I have a little video that I want to show you because I think it'll do a better job of introducing the company than I can. So let me just get to that, and then I will continue from that point forward, so please bear with me for a minute here.
Imagine a world without connectivity, where the first broadcast, small steps transformed into giant leaps, and oceans bridged with the push of a button never came to be.
Connectivity is the foundation of today's world, and it is driving the technology of tomorrow.
At Molex, we provide the engineering expertise and top quality interconnect solutions necessary for smaller, smarter, safer, and more powerful and reliable products and systems.
From the factory to the road and beyond.
Our customers are manufacturing the products you see around you every day, those you depend on most.
The phone in your pocket,
the stove that cooks your family meals,
the car that shuttles your children to school.
and through powerful collaboration with our customers, we create connections that make your essential products work.
as well as the infrastructure enabling them. Safer driving experiences,
Even more streamlined devices
less invasive procedures.
and faster data centers.
Our global team of design, engineering, and manufacturing leaders
Help our customers carry their brilliant ideas through to production.
Wherever our customers go, they have one thing in common.
they bring us with them.
I am Molex.
I am Molex.
I am Molex, and we are creating connections for life.
Excellent. Well, thank you. It's great to be here on behalf of the team at Molex, who happens to be headquartered not too far here from Chicago, and I have some colleagues in the audience who, quite frankly, without their contribution, probably wouldn't be having this conversation. It's exciting to share with you a little bit about what we've been trying to do at Molex in regards to helping bring greater value to the marketplace. Couple themes that were shared earlier by the presenters, this concept of total experience, if you will, driving value to the customer, helping the customer get greater value from your company, how to do that in a way where you give the customer back time. You give them the opportunity to actually think about greater innovation, eliminating the obstacles or the roadblocks, if you will, for your employees to do that. You know, people do not come to work in the morning and say, wow, I cannot wait to get to work to fail today. I cannot wait to be the ire of everyone who's like frustrated because I can't do what I'm being asked to do. And Molex, like many other companies, grew up over multiple decades in lots of different forms. The operating model of the company changed. As the operating model of the company changed, technology, data, and processes didn't necessarily change with it. So you ended up having a company that went from maybe a very local country structure to a regional structure to global structures, but the operating architecture and the processes didn't change with it. So you ended up actually creating a lot of barriers to success for the individuals who are contributing to that value chain. In other words, how does the customer get value? It creates a lot of frustration for people. It creates even more frustration for the customers. You can see from our footprint, we operate in over 38 countries. We have approximately 40,000 employees. It might be 45, depending upon who you talk to and how we're actually counting up the people in the HR systems. We're part of Koch Industries, which is located in Wichita, Kansas. A pretty successful privately held company in a lot of large industrial and processing businesses. Koch purchased Molex in 2013, and it's given us an opportunity to, quite frankly, build off the Koch foundation in terms of how we think about running our business and driving value into the marketplace. From a transformation perspective, I could tell you that we started this journey in 2019. I joined Molex in October of 2019, right before the pandemic really took hold. I had very limited business-to-business experience. I had zero electronic componentry business. So you may say, wow, I was the obvious choice to lead this program. I had a lot of experience in direct-to-consumer activity. I worked in hospitality and retail, a little CPG experience. And what I was able to do through the 30 years, which I've grown up and evolved and made mistakes and learned, is leverage technology to help drive value with the marketplace. Whether it's a direct consumer experience, whether it's products that are being delivered at scale, or it's finding ways to help people get better value from the services we offer, that's been my primary job. So I was never really like an IT person per se. Like I wasn't working in the back offices of infrastructure. I certainly needed those things to be successful, but that wasn't my focus. My focus was more on the front end of the business. And what I learned really quickly is that companies have specific capabilities that they can bring to bear that advantage them, that create differentiation. For Molex, it's around product innovation and our ability to interact with our customers in a more frictionless manner. Unfortunately, we found ourselves in 2019 was not in that place due to, not on purpose, just the evolution of the company and the systems that were being utilized to implement and execute those processes, not enabling our employees to drive value forward. So what did we learn through this process? I get the sense that many of you are going through some aspect of transformation, and whether it's industrial or product development or your entire operating model, the situations that and the circumstances that drive the greatest value are very similar. It's around people. It's, do the people understand one vision? Do you have a clear vision and a roadmap of where you're going? Vallejo, you mentioned this earlier, you need a path. Well, a lot of times companies will jump into this, and when I joined Molex, this was the situation. There were what, no less than 16, 17 projects that were defined as transformation. Some of them were in IT, some were in product development, some were in supply chain, a lot were in industrial and manufacturing operations. What they weren't is connected. They weren't driven towards an architecture of outcomes. Like, in other words, we were going to do all this work, and were we really going to be rewarded by the customer? Does the customer even care that we're doing this work? So if you can't start with a clear vision in terms of what would the marketplace be really excited about if you did something and it showed up and it was material and it was actually a tangible asset, why are you doing it? Because quite frankly, you're just talking to yourselves. And that's a lot of what we were doing. We were going to basically compete with each other to try to bring capabilities forward without synergizing and threading them together, which would have led to an ecosystem that was not productive. You would have had advantages in some areas, disadvantages in others, but unfortunately the people who have to pull the value through would have been compromised because their ability to do their jobs would have been further rendered inefficient. David just mentioned this concept of data and how important data is to people doing their work and being able to create value. We look at systems from a supply chain perspective, raw material procurement for example. Well, purchasing raw materials is dependent upon a whole bunch of data elements. Some of them are internal, a lot of them are external. Well, if it takes you, multiple days or hours or even weeks to gather that data and make a determination on what you should buy when and how and where you should manufacture something and how you're going to deliver that to the customer, the marketplace isn't going to wait for you to figure that out. Somebody else is going to figure it out faster. And they're going to move to that customer or that provider. You have to reimagine how people do their work. They don't do their work, no offense, David, through an ERP system. That's a transaction processing system. It needs to happen. It needs to do what it's supposed to do. But that's not how people excel at what they do. What they excel at what they do is when they get the right information through the right functionality, and you have customized capability that works for that employee experience and how that links to the rest of the ecosystem. So what we decided to do was take a step backward, start with the vision, and really start showing people what great could look like. In other words, if you're a supply planner, imagine if you didn't have to touch 25 different systems each day to figure out what you were going to send into the schedule to manufacture something. Maybe you could even just use your mobile phone, and that could drive enough functionality to make those determinants. But to make that happen, you have to do certain things. You have to modernize your application architecture and your infrastructure for sure. And I agree with David on the whole sense of cloud. Cloud's critical. You cannot work fast enough if these are all premise-based apps and distributed systems. This concept of non-ERP activity happening in Excel and Outlook and SharePoint and other systems that have been created as workarounds because your core transaction processing system can't support what you're trying to do is very real. But all those distributed systems create inefficiencies. It creates obstacles and roadblocks. You can't get visibility to data. So you have to sit with people and understand, how are you really trying to do your job? So to do that, you need experts. You need individuals who understand organization change management and can really define the architecture of how someone's doing their work versus how they could be doing their work versus the vision and outcomes that you're trying to achieve, and then show them what that could look like. Don't put it in a PowerPoint. PowerPoints don't mean anything to someone who's trying to do their job. You guys know people are overextended and burned out. Allison just told us most people are not even staying through lunch and they're leaving before they even have a chance to come back to work. Well, if you're going to just give them, quite frankly, more documentation on what they don't have and what it could look like, and I can't touch it, that doesn't really get me excited. But if you take the time to actually show me something, even if it's not 100% accurate when it comes into production, I can get motivated around that. I can start to believe that something could be different. So you think through the lens of, what is that employee trying to do in terms of being successful? Help connect that individual to what great could look like, and then start small. Too often we think about these digital transformations. We have 85 plants. We have to do all 85 plants. We're not going to be able to do all 85 plants at one time. It's impossible. Start with a couple plants, maybe even one plant. At Molex, we make, obviously, lots of parts, or products, if you will, cables, components, and other connectors. But we also make solution products that actually have a full integrated capability. Those are two different manufacturing processes. Well, if you try to take the same configuration and serve both those manufacturing operations, you're probably not going to get the proper solution. So you have to take the time to understand the nuances of those and build out capability that has the agility, so that as you come across new opportunities or new challenges, the technology is malleable enough to serve that. If you're trying to define everything at one time, you're highly unlikely to be successful. It will be viewed as a technology project, not as a people-centric enablement program. So starting small, being really clear in terms of what you're measuring from a metrics perspective, and then reward people for that. Do not confuse them by saying, well, I know you've been working this way, and you've been rewarded for working this way. Now we want you to do something different, but we're still going to reward you for the old way of doing something. It's highly unlikely you're going to get motivated around that. And this stuff all sounds so simple, but I can promise you, so many companies don't do these things. They just don't think through the full implication of what needs to happen. Because if you're not putting people in a position where they're going to be rewarded, both for taking risk and for failing, because it will not work initially, guaranteed, it's super unlikely it's going to come out of the box perfect, they're not going to have the stick-to-itness to see it through. Because every single part of progress that we've made at Molex, and John and Tony, I'm talking to both of you guys, has started with failure. None of it started the way it was supposed to. I can't tell you how many meetings we've had to have with our CEO trying to explain why it didn't work exactly the way Deloitte said it was going to work. Sorry, it's just not reality. But that's not a ding at Deloitte. Deloitte did a great job. They did exactly what they were paid to do, and quite frankly, they were right in a lot of ways. But the reality for us was that we had to own the responsibility of pulling it through. And that starts with really understanding what's happening within the organization. So making sure you're putting measurements and incentives in place so people can be successful, clear accountability and decision rights. There can't be this concept of, well, who owns lead time? Well, I'm not sure. Well, then you're probably not going to fix it. Because if it's just something that sits amorphously across the organization and it's this ambiguous aspect that no one can really define, it's super unlikely it's going to get better. So be really clear on what is the value chain, what needs to happen horizontally across the organization, and how do those relationships complement or and disable one another. Because most people who are trying to add value are impacted by something either upstream, downstream, or sideways. If you don't understand that, you're not helping them. You're actually most likely even hindering them possibly. And then as you pull it forward, you have to have the right people in the right roles. So what's the right mix of talent? You need folks who have a lot of credibility and integrity in the business. Molex, the average tenure, I want to say, is 25 to 30 years. People work there, it's a lifetime. They don't come to work there and spend 3 days and then go work someplace else. This is their livelihood. Their families depend upon this. They take it super seriously. So if you're going to come in and say, hey, you can do it better, and I've been here for 3 weeks, what do you think they're going to say to you? I don't think you know enough to actually tell me how to do my job more effectively. So you have to make sure that you're giving them a chance to, quite frankly, to connect to it, contribute to it, and then bring new thinking in. Find the people who have a contribution mindset, who do believe it could be better. They just don't know how to make it better. Because quite frankly, they're too busy just trying to keep the current business underway. They're just doing the blocking and tackling because that's what they've been doing. That's what they have to do. It's the only way for them to be successful. They don't have time to pontificate and think about, well, this could be so much better if we could just do these 10 things. So introduce that, help that, and make that manageable and consumable in a way where it's not a threat. It's viewed as actually an asset. It's contributing to their success. And then at the end of the day, if the CEO or the folks who have responsibility for the business don't want to do it, don't do it. Because you're going to have to work through so many challenges, whether it's prioritized activities, investment not being what you thought it needed to be, the delays that you're going to encounter. You know, I thought, David, the message around that medical company that was able to deploy 20 plants in a year, that's awesome. I'd love to know more about how they did that. And maybe if it's a digitally native business, because digitally native businesses can move faster than more legacy manufacturing businesses, but it's really hard to meet the expectations that are set for some of these programs. And sometimes the aspiration is so high just to get it through the approval process, it almost can't meet what the expectation would be. So how do you manage that and make sure you have the perseverance and stick-to-itness to make that happen? That requires senior level leadership that is unrelenting and unyielding on seeing through the challenges. So we didn't talk a lot about technology, and I'm actually out of time, so I have to wrap up here. But the technology is super important, and it's a massive enabler, and you have to modernize your technology to do this. But if you lead with that, unfortunately, you're going to lead to an outcome that's going to feel a lot like other IT projects that just run astray. So, really quick example, twin axe operator transformation. This is just encapsulates some of the things we've been able to accomplish. We now have employees that are leveraging data real time. They're making better decisions on how to manufacture really important products, in this case, data center capability. And what they've been able to do through the analytics is optimize not only the manufacturing process, but their performance in the context of schedule and forecast. These folks will no longer work without that data because they see how much value it creates. The customer loves it because they're actually getting the product they asked for on time and it works. Wow, what a novel concept. But believe it or not, it doesn't always happen. But these are the types of things that transformation can enable if it's done properly. But the things that I talked about, those are the things that matter most. And if you don't pay attention to them and make them a priority and focus your activity, unfortunately, you will end up with a technology program, which I think will underdeliver on expectations. I'm super passionate about this. I love what I do. I feel incredibly fortunate to have the opportunity that I do. I wish I could talk about it further, but we are out of time. So hopefully this was helpful, and I appreciate you listening. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Can everybody give a huge round of applause to all of our keynotes? Again, the same aspect. We are going to have roundtables. We'll start in 20 minutes. If you're not sure what roundtables you are in, please, we have our team. Diane is out there. Sarah is out there. They can tell you where it is, what rooms do you need to go to. These are the same rooms. They are on the 12th floor and the 11th floor. I would really appreciate if you can take 30 seconds to give us your feedback on the keynotes, and we look forward to seeing you again at noon. Lunch is at noon, and then we'll have our keynote panel at 1. Thanks, everyone.
Join us here again today at 1 p.m. for our executive panel. Enjoy your roundtable sessions.